Hello. Good evening. You know, it's really something. I don't know what to do. I am Monsignor Lorenzo Albacete, a Monsignor of the third millennium. Monsignors of the third millennium don't care what their hairs look like. Monsignors of the third millennium devote themselves to making present to you those fundamental experiences at the heart of the gospel. And that is our purpose in this series called Retrieve, because we wish to retrieve these experiences about reality, about life, about the world, about oneself, about each other, that are presupposed when the church proclaims the gospel, teaches the faith, as in the new Catechism. Otherwise, these words will not signify. In fact, they may signify the opposite of what they originally meant within the gospel. We have a serious problem today at the heart of the new evangelization. Otherwise, it's just going to be more and more words. We need to retrieve those experiences, and this is what we hope to do in this series. We've been discussing the moral life in the presence of Jesus Christ, the following of Jesus Christ, the sequela Christi, as the tradition has it. Today we're going to continue with that and look at it now from the perspective of a word that's talk about words, to be used to signify the opposite, to lack the foundational experiences. The word is conscience. Conscience is the word that brings you today's show. Every encounter, every meeting is brought to you by a word, and conscience is your word today. When Pope John Paul II visited what was then Czechoslovakia, before the separation into the two republics, the president at that time and the president of the Czech Republic later, President Havel, a humanist, perhaps among the best moral examples the world has to offer, the contemporary world today, a very strong voice on morality of peoples and nations. He welcomed John Paul II to the airport, and he said to him, "I want to quote to you from one of your poems, sir." Amazing, isn't it? The Pope, as you know, is a poet, a dramatist. And he made this observation. He said, in one poem, the name of the poem, by the way, is Thinking of My Country, I Think of the Tree. It's a lovely romantic name like that. Anyway, but Havel didn't identify the poem. But he simply said that there was this phrase, he said, "Can conscience ever run contrary to the torrent of history?" Can conscience ever go upstream, if you wish, as history is going downstream? Obviously, Havel had in mind what had happened in his own country and in Eastern Europe with the fall of the communist states. Communist states, as Marxists thought that inspired them, justifies, appeals to the direction of history for its perception and communication of the truth. Truth is life in accordance with the direction of history. That is what truth is for the Marxist mind. And human beings Their dignity, their call is, if you wish, to align themselves with the direction of history. Otherwise, you are a historical contradiction. This is what I was called myself by a great Marxist leader. I won't mention the name. He told me I was a historical contradiction. I was very flattered. Because, that's what that is. You follow history, you align yourself with it, then you are set free. Freedom, truth, all of these things is movement in accordance with the direction, the evolutionary direction of history towards some kind of paradise-type situation. Havel said the collapse of this system of thought and government shows that there is a reality within the human person that empowers the person to oppose the direction of history, to resist it, to say no. In fact, to wish to swim against it. And this, he said, is conscience. Conscience is that power within the human person not to be encompassed by the necessary, the direction of history, not to be reduced to anything, to always be able to go beyond the limits of a moment, not to allow the moment, in any ways you may look at it, to dictate who you are and how you must act. Conscience is a power of resistance to the tyranny of history. Your own personal history, the history of your people, your nation, your world, whatever. You are not to be reduced to it. You are not to be justified just in terms of it, understood perfectly, because everybody understands everything about you until now. Oh, not so, you see. Not if you believe in newness, real newness. You see, we associate history with the new. But is it really new? No, it's just a development of possibilities that were already there. The current of history has nothing new in it. Things just develop according to some kind of grand plan. The new, the really new, comes as an interruption of that flow, as a resistance, and therefore redirecting it. Because when the flow encounters an obstacle, it will move in another direction. If it's a real obstacle, if it can just, tear it down so it can move in the same direction. But if it is a real obstacle, it will crash against it and have to move in other directions. If you believe in the really new, then that which is truly new will run against the current of history. Conscience is that capacity for the new, that refusal to be pinned down and totally defined and grasped in terms of other things. The capacity, to use a more technical term, for transcendence. To go beyond, not to accept limits. You ask yourself, what's going on? Where does it come from? Well, obviously, it doesn't come from our senses. You see, the senses surrender rather easily. If we live only by the thrills of our senses, we won't oppose history. We won't be revolutionaries. All we have to be done is give you a nice, huge chocolate cake. Great revolution, huh? You're bought off with sensual pleasures, you say. You know? Fine. Consumerism. Consumerism is the most totalitarian of settings because it buys us off. It keeps us distracted with all kinds of pleasant, sensual experiences. Oh, as long as we're happy that way, we can do anything. No, the senses won't do it. Feelings. Feelings. We sometimes want to equate conscience to a feeling. But feelings, are they reliable? Feelings are easily manipulated, easily controlled and suggested. They're like the senses. Good heavens. Hey, there are pills now, mood pills. We know now how to alter the brain chemistry in such a way that we can choose, manipulate moods, our own and that of other people. That's going to end any resistance very easily. Well, where then? For lack of a better word, conscience is a spiritual reality, where by spiritual I mean that which goes beyond the sensual and the psychological. And because it goes beyond, that is what allows us to go beyond the power of history. Spiritual is the ability to transcend, to always go out beyond a limit. Now, how is that power activated? What moves one to go beyond? I'll tell you, only the beyond itself. If you do not grasp the beyond, you will not be moved to go towards it. In our discussion on morality, we said, people do not walk long, or should not anyway. If they do, they are deforming themselves, following a simple moral value or law. Now, freedom can only be exercised in following persons, not principles or laws or impersonal realities. Only someone else. Only in the context of an interpersonal relationship am I free to walk. Only the power of love, which is the basis of this relationship. Similarly, the ability or the movement towards transcendence is only possible within that relationship of attraction of the presence of the transcendent one, you see. It is the presence of the other, of another, any other first, that moves me to go beyond the moment, beyond everything that the self wants to build around me. It happens in lives. I mean, sometimes you, because of the love of someone else, you will be a great revolutionary. And you defy anybody. The power of states and armies, ideologies, because of your love of someone else. that perception of the someone else and that love between you and the other, that is what empowers that conscience to oppose history or any kind of power. When that other is God, and for us, God in Christ Jesus, present, then conscience is empowered to always refuse limitations. That is the great dignity of the human being. The ability to be empowered by another's love to overcome all attempts at limitations erected by the self. You see, that the power of that love is experienced, we've said this again and again, in the presence of Jesus Christ, within the presence of Jesus Christ, and that is always within that interpersonal communion that we call the church. It is this communion of life and love, it is within it that the other, in fact, see, there is no love if it isn't between others. Within this communion, you are always in relation to others, other. And it is relationship to other, all the way to He who is the other, that empowers my conscience, that sets free my conscience. It's amazing, because we have problems. We see conscience as a matter of sheer individualism, and we oppose it to the presence of others. You see, for us, conscience has an entirely individualistic. Now, but you see how different, and yet how that is an impoverishment of what is the truth. Conscience is entirely personalistic. But individualism and personalism are not the same. Individualism, you are closed within yourself. Through personalism, you are yourself in this relationship of love and communion of love with others. You're most fully yourself that way, because God is that way. Otherness and conscience are not opposed. Church, communion, and conscience are not opposed. If they are within the life of grace, within the life of grace. Of course, remove grace and the presence, and you have this artificial construction, this legalistic situation. And then, yes, in that sense, otherness is oppressive. But it's not really otherness, because we are not even capable of grasping the other as such. Conscience is the ally of freedom, of newness. It is what allows us to escape the tyranny that would limit us. Only possible within a life in the presence of Jesus Christ, the follower of Jesus Christ. So in the moral life, truth, authority, conscience, these go hand in hand with freedom. There is no freedom outside this relationship between these three. I know that that is not the way we experience it all the time. All the more do we need the grace to grant us the experience of that harmony, because you see, in perfect love, there is no difference between freedom and obedience, because your desire is only the love of the other. That is what we have lost, but that is what we regain through the power of the saving grace of the presence of Jesus Christ.